Well, I've got 6 o'clock already, or? Okay.
Yeah.
So, are we good? Good to go? Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call our meeting to order if I could. And first up, we'll look for additions and deletions to the agenda. Are there any? Nick?
Can you add the report from the search committee?
Yes, one report from the search committee to be added under, it'll be verbal, under the reports to be added. So that's item J.
Yep.
Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda?
If you could add just, it's a very brief water authority.
Okay, so under J also,
Yes,
we'll have
please.
another verbal report from the Water Authority. Okay, so with those 2 items, we'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support?
And motion support, last chance for comments or questions. Hearing none, those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed is no. Motion is carried, we have an agenda, thank you. Has roll been taken?
Yes.
It has, we have roll. Next up would be Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please rise and join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, and welcome everyone. Next order of business is the approval of the March 22, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Your pleasure.
Moved.
Support.
We have motion support. Are there comments or questions, corrections, anything on that? Hearing none. All those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. The motion is passed. We've approved the minutes. Communications. We have, I guess, to receive a communication from Sabine Maltby regarding solid waste collection. Your pleasure.
Move to receive.
Support.
And motion support. Comments or questions? Anything from staff? Nate?
Obviously, this is regarding carts, and what to do with carts. So, if you do have current carts with yourself, though, there's a few options for folks. Obviously, yard waste, that can be used for yard waste. Make sure it just has yard waste prominently stamped on it, and you can use for that. If it's a certain type of plastic, it could be recycled. So we're looking at Pagnos, if they can take it there. Then also, obviously, you could probably sell it on Facebook Marketplace if there was, put on there for sale there too. So, and also the blue bins that we have for recycling currently, those are yours also as a resident. So, you can use those for whatever purpose, or sell them, give them away, whatever you'd like to do. So, the totes are the same way.
If anybody has a large bin, I've been approached that someone would use them for their garden. And I put that out there, but nobody has let me know.
What's a large bin? What do you mean?
The
Like your
recycling.
large trash bin, like the old trash bin
okay.
that you used to take to your road.
Okay.
Jenny White Lynn said that she would use them for her garden, so. If you have any, that's.
I might.
Okay.
And then just a quick reminder too that we obviously the carts are coming out for both trash and recycling. Please don't use them until May 1st. That's when Granger will start picking things up. No one's in trouble. No one's getting yelled at. Just please continue to recycle and put your waste the way we're currently doing it until May 1st. And then obviously we'll have some time to get used to recycling because it's going to be bi-weekly. And large item pickups, you must either call customer service at Granger or fill out their online form. So a little bit different, but we're hoping in the long run it'll be better for large item pickups also. So.
I noticed the people who were putting some of them out today, and I asked them because I noticed on the ones that I have, there is a serial number and a scanning code on the side of those. And I asked if they were being recorded as to who was getting what number, and the answer is yes. They know which ones are yours and which ones are not yours, and when yours blow down the street, they should be able to find it or help you find it, and people who are stealing them and switching them and stuff, it should be helpful. But those numbers are recorded at your address.
So it might be helpful to take a picture of our own number.
Wouldn't hurt. Wouldn't hurt, yeah, to know what it is.
So a bunch of them went together.
I wouldn't have even thought to look at that when there was a number.
Well, I noticed the 2 of them were different. I had
Yeah.
2 of them, they were just sitting right in front of them.
So observant.
No,
That's good.
right in my eyeballs.
Okay, that's it. Anything else? All right, hearing none, I believe we had a motion on the table to receive it. So all those in favor will be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed is no. We have received the communications. Thank you to Sabine for that. Hearings, we need to set a public hearing for May 10th, 2022 at 6 PM or as soon thereafter as the agenda allows to review the proposed fiscal year 2022-23 Elba City budget and related property tax millage rates. Your pleasure.
Move to set the hearing.
Support.
All right, motion support. Comments or questions? Anything from staff on that?
Nope,
or
that's
just-
our yearly,
okay.
public
Nothing new,
hearing for it.
nothing new. All right,
Nothing new,
okay. So with that, all those in favor is yes?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. We have set a hearing. Thank you. Number two, we need to set a public hearing for April 24, 2022 at 6 PM or as soon thereafter as the agenda allows for review of an application to transfer an industrial facilities exemption certificate for 250 Adams Street from Shiloh Diecast Midwest LLC to Udying North America LLC. And I hope I didn't butcher that name too badly.
Yeah, yes, it's
Hey,
a tough one.
is this at a city commission meeting, or is this separate? 'Cause it should be the 26th, I guess, right? Unless my math is off.
It's be our next commission meeting. It should be the 26th.
26.
Yes, it
26th.
would, yeah.
Thank you.
24th is Sunday.
26.
26th, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for catching it.
It's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
That's why I went to law school.
Calendar 101.
That's the only class I passed.
Let's hope that's not true. We're taking advice from this guy. All right, I believe we do not have a motion, is that true? Okay, so we entertain a motion if anyone's so inclined. Or motion support. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. And the motion is passed, and we set a hearing for April 26th. Moving down to resolutions. First up, we have consideration of a proposed performance resolution required by the Michigan Department of Transportation, authorizing the annual application and permit for miscellaneous operations within the state highway right-of-way, which will include the street closures and banner placements in conjunction with the 2022 special community events use of the state highway right-of-way. Your pleasure.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion support. Any additional comments or questions? Background from staff?
This is a little bit later than we've normally done it, but obviously with coming out of COVID, things are a little bit slower, but hopefully this is a good sign that we're back on track for all our community events going forward, so.
Sounds good. All right, all those in favor be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. The motion is passed, and we'll be hanging some banners and closing some streets. Number two is consideration of a resolution to place a ballot proposal on the November 8, 2022 general election for consideration of approval of a 2.5 mil, 6-year street dedicated millage from 2023 to 2028 for the repair and maintenance of public streets within the city of Alma. Your pleasure.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Any comments or questions?
When do we have to have this in? Is there a deadline to get it on the ballot?
Off the top of my head, I want to say it's the end of July, 26th or 29th, one or the other. I think that they were hoping to get it passed early so that it could be planned in the budgeting.
So it needs to be, we need to pass it by July to get it on the ballot for November. Is that
Correct.
okay?
Yes, yes.
Mike.
Early July at the latest.
The reason I'm asking that is to mess up our budget, but actually, after your presentation, it would be really useful for, we did hearings, or meetings about the trees, to talk, so citizens talk about, understand what is going on in terms of how much we are able to fund, what this means, and get that information out, maybe get both support and feedback about what are the other options in front of the city, because it's unusual that we have one, but it also, given the cost, doesn't go very far. And so for people to understand that would be my only reason for saying, delay it, is people come back and say, we really only have millage, or what are the other options you have as a city. It might be good to just get it in front of folks, so we know.
I do
it's
think,
out there.
to that point, that education about it is key, and I'm not sure what we can do, because obviously the mix-up with the new garbage cans, people aren't reading what we're doing currently. I'm not sure what the status is of our website, but I still find it incredibly difficult to find information, like Noah and I, we get confused regularly about when street parking is. Is it when the time change occurs, or is it an actual date? Well, so we were trying to find that on the website, and if I hadn't known some basic keywords to search, he couldn't locate it, and he's much more savvy than I am. So I am fearful that people aren't aware, and I don't know what we can do to educate people, because again, we don't wanna increase it even though we need it, because we're afraid people will just say no. So I'm not sure
It's a conundrum.
what kind of plan we need to put in place to, and maybe like you're saying, public meetings or something, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you could do strategically, it could be, somebody always does a report on city commission meetings, if Eric wants to call and say, this is in front of us, let's do an interview about what that means with the newspapers. But, and then maybe you do have a public meeting, and there's radio talk shows. I mean, whatever it is to get out there, you're gonna have to almost, if a website is by design passive, people come to it, you're gonna have to figure it out. I worry about, we get this,
Well, and
It's
I'm not,
okay,
again,
but
I
it's-
am here and kind of know more than, I received my garbage can stuff, but it wasn't until I read Eric's report that I realized it wasn't until May 1st when they're on my lawn. So, I mean, I knew I had gotten it, I was like, oh yeah, I'll read that later, and I didn't. And so I think, we can keep putting things in water bills or sending things, I just think we need to think of something more earth-shaking to get the information out.
And I would say, this programming for Street Village has gone on for 30 years. It's done some good, certainly, there's no question about that. But it's doing, every year we do a smaller and smaller amount because the dollars go less far, the prices increase, and it becomes, I guess, less beneficial on an annual basis. I think it's time after 30 years to explore if we need to continue with it, or if we can, if there's any better way to do things out there, we need to take a deep look at it and see if there's alternatives. And I don't have I won't guarantee you there's no easy answers, there's no magical pot of money that's gonna fix everything for us, but I think we owe it to everybody to take a deep look at this and say, do we just keep doing it because we've always done it this way, or do we look for alternatives and explore some alternatives?
I mean, if you're gonna have an open house, for example, do you invite our local legislators and say, hey, you guys, you have to have the key to the kingdom. Why don't you sit in on what we've invited people to talk about?
Well, we
I
had
know I'm
the-
being a bit of a
No, we
Pollyanna,
had
but
the
I
tree
think
meeting,
you're
and
going
there
to-
was maybe 25 citizens that came to the meeting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had between the two meetings, about 30.
So.
I have a Facebook survey I did put out afterwards. I have 150, give or take, that filled out the survey.
So there
yeah.
was more interest in that.
Even though it was on the website before the meeting.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to blow it up, I just think this is a big deal, and
It is.
What's the number of hits we have on YouTube for this? Average, I mean, do we get a lot of people who watch it, or are there 11
On a meeting?
on this meeting yet?
Varies meeting to meeting, but I would say you have an audience of about 20.
I
So
know.
24 for trees isn't bad.
There's the whole viewing audience.
No, I was just wondering, to maybe open up a city commission meeting to have it for the purpose of taking citizen input like we have on several other things about the street millage, education about what it is, and bring people in if they want to come in. And we have 100 people at the meeting yelling and screaming at us, that's fine. At least they'll get some stuff out there. And
Well,
it's
just
broadcasted,
everybody
yeah.
go and talk around about raising the millage. And I think that will generate more interest if you want to have interest. And you talk about raising taxes, and that generally brings people out.
Well, I think the most important thing to get out to the community, and we were talking about that, and I know Dave was concerned about it, and rightly so, because of the Headley Amendment way back when, and the fact that when you vote on a millage, let's say the 2.5 mils, you collect 2.5 mils the first year, but because of Headley, you collect less the second, third, and fourth, and fifth year. So when you want to re-vote this thing, it is essentially a renewal in the sense that it's the same millage that you passed, 6 years ago or whatever. But you can't call it a
Started with 30
renewal
years ago.
because you're actually raising the millage rate a little bit because of Headley. And that is confusing, and I think it is important that that gets out. that the citizens of the city of Alma understand that this really is, as any layman would say, a renewal. You're just,
Mhm.
you get to
Same.
vote again
Right.
for
But the
for the
net
millage you
effect is
passed
it's an
before
increase,
because it
yeah.
expired. So there is, I think, Nick, a reason to try to get the word out, however we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
Is there a way to, I know when we were doing the library building, what seems like a million years ago, there was an average, like if your household income is this, the average, I always find those extremely helpful for me. I mean, I don't have a lot of extraneous pots of money laying around, and so it's helpful to me, like, oh, I am more than happy to pay $10 a year, or a month, or whatever it is for this, that, or the other thing, and I just think it brings, I don't know if there's a way to do a calculation of what an average.
We actually put that together in our stuff,
Mhm.
and in this case, the 2.5 mils, a $200,000 house would pay about $150 annually towards the street.
Right, and I
millage.
think that's a key piece of information to.
But that was in that thing that they
What's
showed us.
important,
Right.
though,
Yes,
Correct.
that table's
Right.
in all of our information.
Right,
the important thing is, though, they have been paying 150. It's not like they're gonna pay another
It's not
150.
Correct.
You're just gonna keep paying.
You
This-
would continue to pay.
That's,
Right.
yeah, exactly, yeah, that's the important thing.
If I can speak for some of this. Traditionally, and I know we aren't concerned about tradition, because I know we're looking at exploring different options, but what we have done is we approve the ballot language, because it really does, that's why I talked about it at the goal-setting session, things like that, to throw out different ideas, and you don't hear much. But what I'm looking at is, if we put it on the ballot, what you do then is, once it's officially on the ballot, then you can do the PR campaign. If you remember my presentation, that's what I talked about, is you have to go to the newspapers, go to the radio, anybody with options. We have brochures we can send out. We can't tell people to vote for, but what we can is do inform them. We have brochures ready to send out for that, to inform them. And that's the whole idea, is this is what it traditionally brings in, this is what it goes for. That's why the proposal of the streets to do, so they can see where it goes, and that locks it in with where the money goes. The PR campaign happens after you get the approval to put it on the ballot, essentially. Otherwise, it does us no good to do a PR thing, and then we say, well, we're taking it off the ballot. And if we miss that window, then you essentially, unless you do a special election, from what I gather, you have to wait 2 years if it misses the ballot. So you'd have to wait 2 more years to put it on another, either that would be the presidential ballot. So you lose those years potentially in funding, but like I said, if the 2.5 mils is there, we can explore other ideas for alternative funding. I am very open to those conversations. We can have public meetings. I'm an open book. If anybody wants to talk, to ask about how the millage goes, what we use it for, how far it goes, where we spend the money, that's all processes, between the election. That's, anyway, my dying sword for at least trying to get money, because, as you've heard me say, something is better than nothing. Nothing, I know where it goes. We want to look at increasing the millage. That's definitely a worthy conversation. But anyway, the PR, and I'm open to it. If we want to have a committee for PR to get information out there, I'm all for that. If we want to form a subcommittee, we've worked on brochures, websites. If you know social events, anything we can attend, talk about, that's historically what we have done. We have been successful in it. The last time it passed by over 65%, if memory serves right. So that's what I would propose anyway, but it's hard to do that campaign or at least
Right.
informational thing without knowing it's gonna be on the ballot.
And
And
time is ticking.
so that's where I'm at, and then with the budget, to put that money in there, because if it does get turned down, obviously, but I have to project funds for the budget cycles. So that's, a lot of things hinge on that. So if it's a no-go, then it's a no-go, and it changes things, then we're out of the workings for 2 years.
Which is why I said, when does it have to be on the ballot? If we have to July. Part of the PR ahead of
Yeah.
time is so people know it's coming.
Yep.
And people may say, I think you guys aren't asking enough. And that would, going back, the other end of that is if I can get 2 instead of 1.5, but I've already locked it in at 1.5 because folks are saying, well, another $500,000 isn't hurt, but it actually goes further. I don't want to miss that opportunity either, which, that's why if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do not a PR campaign to say that, but an information campaign,
Yeah.
because we're deciding this,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to put a deadline on it, which would say we need to have a vote on what the language is gonna be no later than a month from now. You have to, you can't let it go on, David, but my
But if
thought
we
is,
have the extra funding, like the millage, I have to project the streets that we would do for extra funding, from what I understand, because we have to show them what we're gonna spend the money on. So if 3.5 mils, what would that do as opposed to a 2.5? But then this body has to adopt the budget by July 1, so those have to be incorporated into that. And if it gets turned down by the voters, it gets turned down, and then it's lost, but that's the reason.
and there's a risk aversion on your part to say, I don't wanna risk losing the whole thing. Part of it for me is, like Tony's saying, we're kind of this constant, which is actually really decreases over 6 years because of legislation out there. And so, I get it, but it's also, I think, how do you actively let people know, we're really considering this, and if you think it should be more or something, either way.
The legislation, from what I understand, does not decrease because I put in there a projection, because it's based on the millage rate, so if property values go up, there is a slight inflationary cost. If we look at my numbers, there is a slight inflationary cost. That's how I figure out what you can afford each year in that 6-year process.
Okay.
So if it drops, that's if property values drop, but traditionally it goes up because property values like everything else go
Well,
up.
the millage rate goes down slightly.
Oh, okay, but the.
Slightly. The actual amount you take in probably will go up because of certain properties uncapping and all of that kind of stuff. But the millage rate itself goes down a fraction. It's not much. But it doesn't allow you then to call it a renewal just because of that, which is unfortunate, because that's really what it is. And that's the confusion.
Well, and it wouldn't hurt to address the components that go into the selection of the roads that are slated for repair as well. I mean, I think we probably owe it to this community to revisit that, and, it seems to me there ought to be some component in there that talks about, traffic volumes on these roads. There ought to be some other things considered, other than, we changed the formula a few years ago and put more emphasis, I think, on underground things. We didn't used to pay attention to that. I think it's time to have a conversation again about, are we still using the correct formula in selecting these roads that are being done for the next 6 years? It's a fair discussion. Open it up to the community, see what they think. Okay. Remind me, do we have a motion on the table?
I think we did.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Don't forget to back, I'm sorry, yes, we did.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the table. Are there any other thoughts or comments?
What exactly is the motion to
approve.
The motion is
approve
to
this
approve.
right now?
The language for the ballot proposal, yes. Okay, clear, are we clear? Anybody else? So all those in favor would be yes?
Yes.
Okay, I believe I heard 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was a yes.
Okay, that's 3. All those opposed would be a no.
No.
No? And I believe I heard 4, so the motion fails. Is that correct, Dan? Just to make sure, and Roger? Okay, and I think Nick and I were also no's.
Just to clear, just for me, the ladies were yeses and the men were no's.
It just so happens
Just
to
like a
be
junior
that
high
way, but
dance.
thank you for pointing it out.
Just wanted to be clear, just,
Well, with that embarrassment.
okay, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
With that, can we set like a
I-
time
they
frame
set
to
a
put it, like
deadline.
right now, like, hey, we have 1 month to resolve
Let's
this?
put it on the,
Well, first, I think we ought to make sure we know when that ballot has to be in too.
it was July.
Well, who said that?
Sarah?
Sarah.
Sarah said it. but I-
Girls.
I'm not gonna say it.
I believe you.
But
He
do
asked
we
the right
need-
person.
Do we need to, even though it's the end of July for the ballot, like Dave was mentioning, that the budget that we're approving to begin July 1st, do we need to make a deadline of making a decision prior to July?
I would
We
have said
certainly
a
do,
month.
yes.
I would have said
Okay.
mid-May, so that gives us time for the budget stuff.
Because if we're wanting a campaign, I mean, it's middle of April already, we're gonna need to get
We need
things
something.
rolling.
Yeah, we might want to schedule or put our discussion on the next agenda,
Okay, good.
perhaps. Would be
That's good.
appropriate.
That's good.
That seem reasonable?
Do you need a
Would you
motion for
like
the
me to be-
agenda, for the deadlines? Sorry.
No. Would you like me to put together a committee about roads to get out in public?
Road committee.
Well, not a committee, but I
No,
mean,
I know what you're saying.
Sure. Are you gonna be the driver of that?
When you say next meeting, are you thinking the 18th or the 26th? Because we're doing budget presentation on the 18th.
Probably our next regular meeting rather than the budget meeting.
Thank
I would think would be more appropriate, and more
Mhm.
likely to
And
have.
the budget meeting is really on Monday, just to clarify.
It's on Monday, it's the 18th, yes, Monday the 18th.
Mhm.
Yes. Lose it, tweets.
Okay. Okay, so next up is consideration of a resolution to approve budget amendments as presented by finance to allow for additional unanticipated revenues and expenditures.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Okay, we have motion and support. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, I guess, I had some questions about item C, $40,000 decrease to general fund and $40,000 increase for expenditures, for the assessing department, for expenditures incurred from the St. Louis contract that were not properly budgeted for in the current year. Can we get some, I don't know, Curtis, is this you? Do you have some color, or is that?
That'd be Curtis in that.
Like, what was your specific question?
Yeah, what's the $40,000 for? What did we
It's
miss?
it's part of the St. Louis contract. The revenue, we get a revenue from St. Louis for our St. Louis contract. We didn't budget for the expense side because we incur the expense and then are getting reimbursed for it. We budgeted for the reimbursement. We didn't budget for the actual expense.
So the income budget's up 40, but
Right.
the corresponding
Yeah.
40 is not in the
Yeah, we
expenditure.
budgeted to get the money. We did not budget to spend the money.
So essentially, you're telling me it's gonna cost us $40,000 more to run that department than what we thought it was going to cost when we passed the budget. Is that, am I interpreting that correctly? Because we put the revenue in the budget, but we did not put the
We put the
expenses.
revenue in, we didn't put the expenses in, so correct.
So it is gonna cost us $40,000 more to run that department than we
Then
thought it was going to.
Than what it was presented on the budget, correct.
Okay.
Same thing with D if we're gonna get into that. That was the other
And
one.
that was where we're going
Yes,
next. You're
so-
right, absolutely.
Yes, so that one is a little easier, well, not easier, but more explainable on my end because, so we don't actually have an IT department currently. That's something that I want to talk about on Monday about setting that up. So over the last at least 3 years, where the expenses for IT come out have been in different spots each year because we keep moving around for what is a better spot. So most of the expenses we were able to capture. We happened to miss, unfortunately, probably the biggest one, which is the $28,000 annual contract. So we thought it was budgeted, one department thought it was budgeted in somebody else's department, that department thought it was budgeted in somebody else's department, and it just got missed. So it's the same contract we always have, we just thought it was in one spot, someone else thought it was in another spot, and turned around it wasn't either. So that was a mistake on our end when we did the budget last year, so.
So the question, I think, the follow-up is, do those represent a shortfall in terms of what the end of the year, because that money's already been spent? Or is it not, is it just gonna be a wash?
It's gonna be a shortfall, assuming that we don't make it up elsewhere, yes.
It's about 68,000.
For those two
Right,
items, correct.
For those two items. And then, I guess, IT is one thing that's internal to internal dollars. When you talk about $40,000 expenses incurred from the St. Louis contract, did we undercharge St. Louis when we formed that contract? Should that contract have been $40,000 greater if we're incurring $40,000 worth of expenses that weren't accounted for?
Well, it's the same amount that was always, it's the same contract that's been in place for a couple of years. We just misbudgeted it.
But did
I
we,
mean,
have we accounted for these expenses
Yeah.
when we negotiated that contract?
it's under my assumption. I wasn't here when the contract was. Our contract, I believe, is for, no, I think it's about 67,000. So,
Right, and 40,000 is a
and 40,000 goes to
number
the
when
salary,
you
and then the
compare
rest of it goes to
$67,000
the,
contract.
correct.
So
So-
if it now costs us $107,000 to provide them services instead of the $67,000,
We can look at that contract and do that
I
analysis.
guess I would like
That's
to
what you'd like?
have, if
Yep.
you could do some analysis and
Yep, we
let
can
us
do that.
know if,
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
can do
are
that.
we losing $40,000 by joining St. Louis with this service?
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Okay. I
Yep, we'll work with the
appreciate
assessor and look into it.
that. Okay,
So.
great, that's all I need, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, I
So you
believe,
wanna approve it and taking out number C? Number C.
I
Letter C.
don't, I think we're incurring those expenses whether we agree to it tonight or
Oh,
not,
okay.
is my
Yeah,
impression.
kind of already happened,
Yeah,
so.
so I think we're gonna do it, it's just a matter of, are we understanding it properly and getting the question answered? You know, did we make up the contract properly, did we calculate it properly when we did that, so. I think we just need to know that.
And this is all part of.
Nothing
what-
against our
no,
friends
no.
in St. Louis,
No,
and
no,
I mean, we
yeah.
want to cooperate, and I love that we cooperate with St. Louis, and we've got a great partnership, and I want that to continue, but I want it to be, just as I'm sure St. Louis wants it to be fair for us. I mean, we don't want to take advantage of them, and I'm 100% confident they do not want to take advantage of us either, so I don't mean to have anything like that read into this.
No, obviously, we can open up and talk about it, but from a standpoint of what Curtis and his team is trying to do with these budget amendments is to, get these out in front of you before the end of the year like we used to do. It's the end of the year, we got all these amendments, instead of dealing with them as we come across it. So.
And I do appreciate that, and my presumption is, and I'm highly confident that it'll make us a better budget next year and for each year that follows, so I appreciate the improvements that we're seeing. It's nice to see some numbers that we can have a little bit of faith in, which we haven't had for
We're striving for
an
that.
awful long time, so
We're striving.
we do appreciate that.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And get back on track here, I don't think we voted yet, did we? We did not vote, so there was a motion on the table. All those in favor would be yes.
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 Any opposed is no, and the motion is carried. Moving on to number 4, consideration of a proposed resolution proclaiming April 29, 2022 as Arbor Day in the city of Elma. Your pleasure.
Move to that.
Support.
Motion and support. Any comments or questions? How many years? Anybody know?
It's over 38.
Lots
Yes,
plus.
yes, it started in the 70s, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Anything? All those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. Glad to hear everybody likes trees. Consideration of a proposed resolution to classify Elma's SLFRF non-entitlement unit fund allocation as replacement of lost revenue and designate the funds for future capital improvements. Your pleasure.
Move to adopt.
Support.
A motion and support. Comments or questions?
Yep, this is our ARPA money that we received, that $930,000 directly to the city. This allows for us to lock this in for capital, for any capital. So we haven't really talked about all the money yet. We've talked about it for the park, for our park bathrooms, but this will allow us to designate it, which we're required to do, and allow us to make this, decisions and discussions about where we're going to put the $930,000.
Okay.
So this takes care of that, so we don't have to worry about that in the future. That it has been.
Once it's designated, it's locked in.
It's
They're not
locked
gonna
in.
play with that.
They're not gonna take
But if we
it.
don't designate it, it presumably could be clawed back by
Yes,
the
that is
government.
correct. That is correct.
Thank you for the clarification on that. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. Okay, we have designated the funds. Moving down to reports, commissioners may receive all the reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any of the items within the section for individual discussion and vote. We have the 7 that were listed, plus the 2 verbal reports that were to be received. On top of these, your pleasure.
Eric, you want to speak? Move to receive the first 6 and give the remaining 3 verbal.
Okay. We have a motion on the first 6. Anybody care to support?
Support.
A motion support. Comments or questions? Anybody else want to pull anything? Hearing none. All those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed is no. That motion is carried. I guess we entertain a motion to hear the last 3 verbally and receive them that way. Can we do that? Sure. Okay.
Move to receive.
All right.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion support. Let's receive them. Who wants to go first? I guess Eric, you would be first.
Yep, we can do that. Just a quick update. North State Street water main. We are looking to have the fire hydrant here in this week sometime. So that's a good step. And then by the end of the month, we'll have the new asphalt in. So that'll button that project up. And just as a little color, we'll talk about it during the budgeting stuff. But we are looking at a couple years down the road to finish that water main and hopefully eventually and connect that into the Superior Street. We've already talked about the neighborhood street millage. Just wanted to give an update. We did go down as staff, Dave, myself, and actually Mark went down with the fire chiefs. We went to the county commission meeting to request some of their ARPA monies. We obviously at our last meeting, 2 meetings ago, I'm sorry, we were going to request $1 million for our parking lot project. Project was estimated $2 million total. We would match dollar for dollar. And then we were asking for $560,000 for the lead and copper investigation project that we would match dollar for dollar. We got down there and obviously there was 9 other entities that were requesting dollars that night also. Out of that, we found out that it was only 1.8 million. They did hold back, at this point, they've held back 1.56, give or take, $1 million for projects possibly at the courthouse, that sort of thing. We were told that there's possibility that they may open up $1 million of that last bid. They do need $550 for a project that they did have in mind. I did provide, actually Marilyn put this together for me, of all the different entities and the projects and the dollar amounts that each community received. On that Tuesday evening, we did receive $274,000 toward the projects that we requested. Obviously, we were requesting 1.5. They had 1.8 that evening. We did previously receive $226,000 for the North State Street water main that we just discussed. 226 there, so a total of 500,000 of the county ARPA funds come to the city. As we just passed the motion for the resolution for our own ARPA money, that $930,000 to allocate for future capital projects. Obviously, that's been locked in now, so we can discuss those going forward. But obviously, we'll be coming back to the commission here, probably the next meeting, with a request to get the engineering going for the parking lots and alleys. But obviously, we felt quite short of what we were asking for. But as you look through the spreadsheet there, for the most part, Alma, St. Louis, Breckenridge, Ithaca, we already received $500,000, but they did kick in that night an extra $110 for the Ithaca sewer truck, and that night's discussion is kind of hinged around that $500,000 for the municipalities. Is kind of where that hinged. The original motion that was put on the floor died because of lack of support, and that is on your spreadsheet here too. The original motion had they split up the last bit of monies between the fire chiefs, the firefighter districts across the county, of $693,000 and $693,000 total to come to the city. So another the first motion would have had another $193,000 coming in as opposed to where we landed. But that did die on the table for lack of support. So then you see in the next piece there of what the next motion was made, and then the breakdowns for each one of the communities that were there and entities that were there asking for monies that evening. So obviously it was a almost $8 million was what they received at the county level, and obviously that went by quick.
Yeah, it's disappointing. Initially, we kind of, I guess we're given the indication that they were gonna distribute it equitably among communities by population, and I clearly hear Village of Ashley got $633,000 to our $500,000. I see the city of Ithaca got $610 to our $500,000. You know, Breckenridge, substantially smaller than us, they got the same $500,000 we got. I don't know where the equity lies on that distribution system. It just seems wrong. I think we need to go back to the table with our county commissioners, and, you know, if there's, gonna split up that extra $1 million, I think we deserve a larger share of that. That's, my gut tells me that. It needs to be a little more evenly distributed according to population. Our population is larger than those communities, you know, vastly larger, especially than Ithaca or than Ashley. I don't know how they do this. It doesn't make any sense to me, what basis they used, or if there was any basis at all used, or if it was just first in line and no thought to the process. So,
Like I said, that's,
Yeah, no,
how
I-
it came down, and
Again, it just surprised me
yeah.
because I was expecting allocations to be based on population, which is what the indications were that we thought we had from them when we asked for guidance on what to request or what to expect. I'm just at a loss. I was very disappointed in this, certainly. I'm sure everybody else here was as well.
it wasn't what we were, obviously, when
No.
we walked in that night and heard, you know, all of us kind of put our heads down, it's like, gosh, 1.8 million, and I know what I was asking. So it was gonna be a rough evening for all of us, and we were there for over 3 hours. 4 hours, we made it 4 hours? It was over 3. It was a long evening,
Okay.
but we can keep our, like I said,
Yeah, I
That
think
million might
I think we
open
should
up.
go back to them and let them know that we deserve more, so. Thank you.
Let's see if there's anything else. We got, as Roxanne mentioned, we are gonna have our first proposed budget presentation next Monday, April 18th, right here in this room. So, if you're able, obviously, the commission will be here and staff, but if you're able to make it. And then subsequent dates for budget review, April 26th, May 10th, May 17th, and then adoption on May 24th at a regular meeting. So that's our schedule for that. I just wanted to give a quick update on the trees. We did have 32 individuals attend both our tree meetings. And like I said, we mentioned already, we have over 150 surveys filled out online. So that's good, you know, getting, we were hoping maybe if we got another 60, that would make it substantially, you know, reasonable of what people were really feeling. And we've already talked about our carts, and the next coming up, we have some amendments to our investment policy that came up as part of our discussion with the library and our library endowment, that we're not really fully investing the way we should be investing it. So on tonight's agenda is some amendments to allow us to do that. So that's all I have.
Any questions? I guess one other thing did come to light. We had I understand there was a stolen truck from the city parking lot, or the city garage.
Yes, we had a young man.
Probably need a report on that of some sort.
Okay, yeah, okay. We had a young man get into the public works area, took a joyride in the flower, I call it the flower truck, it's the truck we use for watering the flowers. Took it for a joyride, took it from our grounds there at the Washington Street facility, drove through the fence toward our wastewater treatment plant, busted that fence open, and took it for a joyride. Some citizens called the dispatch that they were driving erratically with a city truck up in Northtown. Our officers responded, and he did run and flee, and so they did end up apprehending him. No injuries to the individual. There is some, you know, the front of the building, the front of the truck is a little bit scuffed up, but it is an older truck, so all things being equal, that side of it went okay. Obviously, since then, Dave's met with his staff over there about how we have things locked up, even though the gates were closed, how we go forward, making sure that just doing another tighten up security. Yes,
We don't have to explain everything
Yes,
that we do on
yeah.
security. We
Yep.
certainly don't want to.
Yes.
And that's throughout all divisions, because we went through the protocols, and yes, we made changes in all 3 of the public works divisions.
So, you know, obviously, the officers were, as soon as they're called, they're there, we handed them very quickly, and no one was hurt, no property damage other than a sign get knocked over. And
What about the fence?
yes, and the fence,
Drove through
I've talked about the fence, yes, the fence,
Is
yes.
that a fence? Do we have damages? I don't know. Are we insured for that, or is that?
We have insurance, and obviously, once this goes through its process, you know, the court will assign that dollar dollar amount to that individual. And, yes, he wants $50 a month for the rest of it. That's what usually happens, so, yeah.
That's maturity plus 2 years, right?
That's
Okay.
usually happens.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else to add there, Mark or Dave?
The gate's been repaired, that was repaired the next day, so it's functional.
Okay. Thank you, and thanks to the department for responding and apprehending the gentleman that took our truck for a ride. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay, next report, I believe, Nick, you asked me next.
I can be, or Roxanne, if you want to just go, because you're gonna take
Oh,
just
okay,
a
sure.
couple seconds.
Yeah, the highlight of our Gratiot Area Water Authority meeting on Friday was that the budget was approved with a 5% increase conditional upon this, the water rates will increase in July.
No, the GAWA approved a budget with a 5% increase, so that's gonna go to Alma and St. Louis. And then that'll come up for discussion in July for this board to increase water rates. Traditionally should follow that same amount. Has not always been the case, but.
Just for those playing along at home, that 5% increase that's the rate we pay for the bulk purchase of water. That's,
Correct.
doesn't cover any increased cost of distribution of the system, which
Correct.
is arguably a very expensive piece of it, it's a very aging piece of it.
That is correct. Yes.
So, still got that to deal with. Thank you, Roxanne.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? I guess I shouldn't have, didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
sorry.
that was it,
Okay.
including Dave's clarifications, thank you.
Okay. Who has questions for Roxanne?
No, if anyone has any questions, I can certainly ask Dave to pop at the answer.
There you go.
Fine, that's what we're doing.
Dave, to give you the answer.
And that's very fair. Okay, Nick.
Two things happened at the last meeting. I asked all of the commissioners to give me about 3 comments about what they were looking for in a city manager, and I took that and collated it, and I'm passing it out. It will be in the minutes then when I get them. And what I did is just put them in a grid for folks. But a couple things came up as I looked at it, just from my perspective. And they're really, as I looked at it, there were 2 overarching themes from what people were saying. And one was engendering trust. And the words that kept cropping up, like integrity, empathy, listening, transparency, communication, all have to do with the person that role, engendering the trust of, I think, the folks that work with them in the community. The other was what I just described as leadership competence. Do folks have confidence in their knowledge? Are they strategic in what they do? Are there management skills in terms of whether it's time management and getting things moving and going on? And so that leadership competence. So those are this just kind of broad brush, kind of what I saw. That's my thinking about it. You may see something really different, but I thought I'd get it in front of you. And if you want to talk about it, you can. If you just want to make sure I finish quickly, we can do that too. So, any thoughts?
Comments? Chance to stump Nick.
Or I'll
I
get Dave.
think this is
I'll get Dave.
self-explanatory,
Yeah,
and
I'll get
we
Dave to
all
answer
agree
for
on
me.
this. So, if this is what we're all looking for, then this is what we should aim for.
Yeah, okay. Which brings me to the next part, which was someone asked, we talked about a 360 as a way of just kind of assessing where we were with leadership now. And what I did is I talked to HRM Services and asked them to send me a bid proposal. And I asked for 2 things in the proposal. One was if in a 360 we did direct reports and managers as well as the city commission and surveyed them. The surveys would always be kind of what's called a Likert scale, strongly agreed and disagreed. But if you're going to say anything, you need to give specifics as to what. There needs to be content as opposed to being at a restaurant saying, I really don't like this place. You need to say, what's on the menu, tell me what you didn't like, or what you did like. So that's in there. And so there was a second thing I asked that person to give us in the bid, which is, what if you did all the employees? Because sometimes in the management and directors end, we see one thing, but the other employees see another. So you're gonna see 2 different prices in there in terms of what you would get, depending on what the commission wants to do. And what do you get, what would we get for this? It's about a 25-person survey, or 25, not person, a 25-item survey. You get a comprehensive review with data interpretation. So the review is going to give you two things. One is the quantitative, what do these scores look like? But the also is the qualitative, what are the comments we're getting to give us a sense of how to figure stuff out. The second thing is in that, because of the way it would be set up, it would allow us to sort out does the commission see this completely different than management, completely differently than other folks? Do women on staff see this differently than men on staff? So it would allow us to break it down by identifiable groups and say, where are the growth areas as we get into this role? What are the things that need to be done? It becomes also useful in a couple ways. It can be a template we can use if we decide in working with the management staff that over a 5-year period, we're going to do the directors or unit heads a couple a year. You can't do this every year. It would just kill you. You can do a couple of people a year as a developmental piece for folks to see where they're going. The other thing is, we would also get with it what's called the Smart Logic survey. The survey is 25 items. Not every group has to answer every question. So when you get that information in, when we think of what's the best use of the time person filling out that, we may not send you questions 7 through 10 because they don't apply to what your role is. And so the idea is you have it so it will sort what are the most relevant questions for the group as they identify themselves. And we would get to keep that program. So that part is what we would get with this. Then when it's done, that person would review it with Eric, and then we would probably, I presume, because it's an evaluation, move an executive session, and the commission would sit down with Eric and that person would go over what we find. So any questions about that? And you have the proposal in front of you. So that really there's 3 questions in front of the commission at the end of the day, right? Is, do you want to do this at all? Do you want to do it on the scope of just the direct reports and unit heads, or do you want to do the whole staff? The whole staff is going to take more time to interpret. You start to think about all of the qualitative stuff that comes with each section. Well, section multiply that times 70. That's going to take time. There's also what's called scrubbing in this. That when people write things in, we don't want any identifiers so you know who wrote what. So they will go through and make sure that whoever wrote something is sort of, they're made anonymous. The concept is through, but that person's protected. So when people fill this out, they're protected. They would also do the follow-up with folks. The recommendation I got is we're going to do a short period of time to fill it out. You don't want to go on for a month. The longest period would be 2 weeks. Maybe you could do it in a week to 10 days. If we do it, you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks from start to finish for this thing. Other questions? I know I'm giving you stuff.
I'm just talking.
That's why it's.
I would think that we would want to do all employees.
I just feel like if we're going to this
I think so, too.
level, that we should go for the.
Because one, I mean, they all know who the department heads are, so they would know who was answering.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we just did part of the employees, and if we're gonna go to it, I think Roxanne said do all of it. And just, if it's all anonymous, and
Yeah, and the idea is we want people to be able to trust it.
but then it's like I said, everybody, not just
Complete picture of
yeah.
what.
And I guess one thing that I liked particularly about this proposal was not only does it give us information that we can use today, it also establishes a baseline for future commissions to use down the road. You know, if we choose to do this every 5 years or 7 years, whatever it may be, we run this again, and how did we change? Have we improved? Did we not improve? You know, you can run little mini surveys in between if you want to, different things. So it opens up options for people that are going to be sitting here next. You know, there's going to be a different group of people sitting here at some point in the future. So I think it'd be a nice gift to the community going forward as well.
The thing that's not in here is we would have to purchase or subscribe to SurveyMonkey. That's who does this. But again, once we do that, we get the software
Tools.
The tools. So that's $2,600 to $3,800. We will be billed on the time we use. So we have a range. And if that's okay. I wrote motion based on what you're telling us, I have written, which would be the city of Untitled HRM Services to conduct a survey review of the city manager that includes all employees would be, I think what you're telling me. Is that the consensus is?
Did everybody hear what he said?
Yeah,
Is
I
that-
know I dropped my voice.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so that's,
that would be the motion based on.
I think we're actually just getting a report right now. We'll entertain the motion under new business
Okay.
perhaps. Would that be
Fine.
appropriate?
Is that, okay, okay, I'll do that.
I think that would be more appropriate.
Mhm.
Any other questions on the reports? Any of the 3 verbal reports we got? And I believe we had a motion on the table to receive those 3 reports, so all those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no, and the motion is carried, so we have received those reports. Thank you very much for everyone. Let's see, we get back in the agenda here. New business, consideration of a resolution to set the following additional special meeting dates and times for the purpose of presentation of budget review of the fiscal year 2022-23 city budget, and it's April 18th, 2022, and May 17th, 2022, both at 5:30, both, I believe, in this room, as Eric has indicated earlier. So what is your pleasure in setting those 2 dates, additional dates for the commission?
We'll just set the times and dates.
Support.
And motion support, comments or questions? Any of those in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed would be no. Excuse me, looks like it's passed. We've set 2 dates, 2 more dates. Next up, consideration of a resolution to ratify the investment of the following city funds. And there's a number of, looks like there's $4 $250,000 investments for either 1 or 2 years at either Mercantile, Commercial, or Isabella Banks, and one $500,000 investment for 2 years at Mercantile Bank. As it's presented in your agenda, 2 of them are Cedars, which are, fully insured FDIC deposits. They're transferred between banks. It's part of that program we've been over before, so what is your pleasure?
Move to approve. Support.
We have motion support. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Just that, I thank Curtis and his team getting back into the investment, game. We haven't done investments in a while. And instead of just having cash sit there, might as well be earning something. They're small, the interest rates are small, but hopefully they're on the rise soon, so. Appreciate it.
Paying attention
Yes,
helps.
exactly.
Even small
Yes,
increments
exactly.
are better than nothing.
Exactly.
It's all better than zero. So
Exactly.
terrific. Anybody else?
Thanks, Fred.
Okay. With all those in favors would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Any abstentions? And I will abstain because Isabella Bank is on the list. Okay. Item number 3, consideration of a resolution to approve changes to the City of Alma investment policy as proposed by the Finance Director. Your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion support. Curtis, I presume you want to present something to the public here.
So, obviously, like Eric said, we have been not doing a ton of investments over the last few years for various reasons. I think interest rates, some turnover at the position, whatever. We've finally gotten, or working on getting caught up on some of the other things that are on our list, and are trying to really hit investments a little bit harder. We reviewed it kind of sprung up from a finance committee meeting where we were talking about the investments in the library endowment fund. Kind of sparked some questions. We went back and did some reviews. Just trying to get back in, get our heads wrapped around it. Seems this is somewhat new to us too as well. And we just wanted to make a couple of proposed adjustments to the investment policy. There really is only 2 that is really going to have an impact. Some of them are some technical things like found out through training and through talking to some of the other treasurers in the state during a presentation that the cemetery endowment fund has special language that it needs to have. You need to have in your investment policy for that. So that's added in here, but it doesn't really change what we're doing. It's just special language that needs to be in investment policy. So we've got that in there. The 2 things that this changes, and I say change because it may be more of a clarification, but based on how it looked like it had been done historically, was on page 1 under scope, it says that except, it said in the past, except for cash restricted for the bond or by state requirements, that all of our funds were pooled together, all of our cash was pooled together for investment purposes. So how, in practice, it's happened in the past is, say, you have 3 funds that each have $1 million of cash. If you go buy an investment, each one of those are 33%. And so you're pooling all of your money together. Well, that meant that the endowment funds and the public safety benefit fund were included in that pooled investment. So they were only being invested based on a percentage that we were investing as a city, which means they were only being invested at any given time 10 to 20% of their balances. These are endowment funds. We don't need liquidity because a lot of the investment policy is to make sure that we have liquidity in our investments in case we need cash. Well, these are endowment funds. We really don't need the endowment to be readily available. So I wanted to make sure that we pulled those out of the pool so that we can essentially, now we can invest the entire portion of the endowment and maximize the investments in those. That's that major change that we're proposing. And then the other significant change is, and again, maybe this is a clarification thing and I just overly complicate everything, entirely possible, but under the scope it says that we pool all of our investments together in order to invest. But then on page 5, under the maximum maturities, it actually had different lengths of maturities in the past for different types of funds. I don't really know how, if they're pooled together, I can do them differently. So this change is just to make it so that now all of our funds, except for those ones that we specifically pulled out in the previous scope, can now have a 2-year maturity. We can go out 2 years essentially with maturities in our investments. Before it said, which I didn't realize, and I apologize that it actually deleted what was there before in A. It actually said before that certain funds you could invest 1 year, certain funds you can invest 2 years. Now it just says anything that's pooled together we can invest out to 2 years. So that just gives us a little more flexibility with maturity dates, a little more flexibility with lengths, and allows us to do a little bit more. So those are the major changes. There were a couple of just minor edits that we did as well. I also put in here, because again it says best practice, that the city treasurer, which is myself currently, will review this policy annually and will bring any proposed changes to the commission annually, or if there are no changes, we will bring it to you, letting us know that we reviewed it on a certain date and propose no changes. So that this is being looked at every single year and not going, I think the last time this had updates was like 2018 maybe, so. Doesn't mean it hasn't been looked at, but we didn't document that we looked at it in the past or we made changes in the past since then. So that just says that our policy says now I am reviewing this annually and I will bring any changes or let you know that it's been reviewed and we'll bring no changes going forward. So those are really the gist of what we're proposing to change in the investment policy.
Curtis, do we have a drawdown policy? For example, you don't touch the corpus, but do you say we will draw down up to 4% a year? And so the libraries wants to do something with theirs and they have 4%.
So the library and the cemetery both are set up so that 80% of all earnings, oh shoot, which way does it go? 80%, either 80% go back into it and 20% go to spending, or the opposite. I can't, opposite. 80% go to, 80% goes back into the library fund and the cemetery fund, 20% goes back into the endowment to be invested in the future.
Earnings are considered like gain, or are they considered like?
Both.
Okay.
So if you start out with a year with 100,000, if you had 110 at the end of the year, you could spend 8 of that. Well, yeah, then 2,000 would go back.
So it's a valuation as well as,
So,
okay.
Yep.
Whether it's market adjustments, and that's why some years you may
Could
not be able to spend
theoretically-
anything.
could
Because the market
theoretically
may
go
go against you and you lose money.
And some places do a rolling average, like, 12 quarters or whatever. So,
We just do, yeah, the way we have it set up right now is it's just annual, whatever
okay, whatever the snapshot.
whatever it is at the end of the year,
wherever you are,
that's
yeah.
what goes.
Okay.
So,
Curious. Thank you.
It's simple.
it's easier on me. so.
Simple is good.
Right.
I like that. So, okay, who has questions for Curtis? Click off the hook. All those in favor, be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed to be no? Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate the review and education there. Consideration on the resolution to affirm the election commission's approval of an hourly increase for election inspectors, chairs, and co-chairs. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support.
And a motion and support. Comments or questions? Do you have any comments, Sarah? No?
No.
Okay. Okay, well, I happen to sit on the commission and so does Director Mark Williams. And we did discuss, with everything that's going on in elections and the threats that are in the world, the task that we're asking these people to take on. In addition to the fact that we, in comparison to some of our peer groups in the vicinity, in the regional area, we seem to be paying below what seems to be appropriate for that. So these are in line with that. We're not going to be the top paying entity, I don't believe, in the region by any stretch of the imagination, even after these increases, but we all felt, I believe it was very appropriate to increase these wages. So from the election commission point of view, we're very much supportive of this. Anybody have any questions for me on that? Okay. All those in favor would be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, no? Thank you, and certainly extend our thanks to everybody that volunteers to work on these elections. They're extremely important, and we need them to go smoothly. Okay, and thank you for doing all your research and bringing that to the commission. And all of you work with the elections, and it's a tough job, and it's an amazingly difficult job, and it's also a very transparent job. Everything Sarah does is open to review by people from stem to stern, as well as I'm sure everybody else in the nation, but I'm more familiar with what you're doing, and I have a lot of respect for what you do and the work you do. It's a tough job, so we appreciate that. We'll entertain a motion to pay the appropriations.
Do you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, new business. Mr.
Yeah.
Piccolo, I'm sorry.
A motion that the city of Alma engage HRM Services to conduct a 360-degree review of the city manager that includes all employees.
Okay, we have a motion. Support. We have support. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. Looks like it's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Piccolo. We appreciate your work as well.
Can I ask a question about that?
No, it's
Do
too
you have a
late.
dollar figure on
I
that?
did.
Can I get that?
No, it's a secret.
Okay.
Ask Dave, he does all the answers for it's right here. I'll give you a copy of it. I'll give you a
The
copy.
man with all the
Thank you.
answers. There you go.
Appreciate it.
Here, Chris.
And just so the public knows, I
It's
believe it's
26 to
the range
38.
is, okay.
2,600 to 38. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'll give you the copy.
Thank you.
We just like to surprise you, Curtis.
Sorry, Curtis.
Those are the surprises I like.
Hey, it's under 40, it's
I
under
prefer cookies.
40,000.
Well under 40, yeah.
Okay, now does anybody care to pay the appropriations?
Move to pay the appropriations.
Support.
Motion support, any comments or questions? Anyone else question anything? Okay, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, same? Or no, it would be no, wouldn't it? Yes, I'm sorry. Hearing none, it's unanimous. Commissioner comments. Audrey, you didn't want to go first last time, so I'm going to start with.
Always.
No, I was going to start with Roxanne
Oh,
because
yeah,
you
go ahead.
turned me down last time. So. Roxanne.
Thank you to everybody, Curtis, Dave, Nick, for all your work on these things. And I believe I understand more about what Water 30 means than I sound like up here, but I am always immensely grateful that Dave was able to clarify my reports. So, thank you, Dave. And that's all.
Thank you. Danny.
Nothing, Stephen, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Roger.
Happy Easter.
To you as well.
Thank you.
Audra.
I have a couple of things to share. Some fun news, we had a visit today from the Attorney General at Child Advocacy, so that was exciting. We got to take her on a tour, spent a little over an hour with her and her staff, and she got to really see what we were doing here in Gratiot County with the kids and the protection that we provide them, and so it was really neat. It was a neat experience. A little bit of sad news, some of you might know Rhonda Sorensen. Her husband Ralph was a police officer for Alma PD for many years. She passed away yesterday.
Rhonda did?
She did, yes. She was a 30-year employee with the Department of Health and Human Services as a child protective service worker, and in her retirement, she worked at Child Advocacy with me, continuing to protect kids for about another 10 years, and she's an amazing woman. So it's a big loss and very sad. So.
Thank you, Audra. Michelle.
To go along with the sad note, I sent an email to Mark today. Yesterday I was unfortunate, but fortunate to witness the MMR in our town and the firefighters and the police. I'm gonna start crying, but I lost a neighbor of 50 years, and the respect that our team does for family is completely outstanding. They stood there for, they worked on my neighbor for about 40 minutes, and the firefighters stood in a U, and the police officers in complete silence out of respect. And I am proud of the staff that we have in the city. So that's sad news. Moving on to happy news, I want to congratulate the Alma College cheer and stunt team. They won nationals again back to back. So sorry for getting emotional. It's been like 24 hours when you live in a small town and somebody's always there. And last night at 5:30, or not 5:30, 7:30, 24 hours ago, I was talking to my neighbor, and 3 hours later he was deceased. So I just hope that everybody takes a minute to squeeze your loved ones in, love thy neighbor, because it can literally change in a blink of an eye. So Mark, thanks again to your staff. It was very, very meaningful to the family. So I'm proud that we have that in Alma. There you go, Nick, I left you again. Poor Nick has to talk to me. Sorry.
No, I don't really have anything to add. No, I don't have anything to add.
Sarah? Tony?
Well, I didn't know about Rhonda's passing, but I had the privilege of working with her on a number of occasions when I first came here in 1990, and I did some work with the Department of Social Services. She's a phenomenal person, and dedicated her life to the protection of children. She will be sorely missed, no question about it. And I don't know, just talk about the election stuff. Sarah, we owe you a huge debt of gratitude there. And I think it's great that you're being recognized tonight, even though it wasn't, on the agenda or anything else. But, a lot of the things that came up during the last election, Sarah was forced to answer a lot of questions and was spot on, and everything that she did was correct, above board, and it's really impressive.
And reviewed multiple times.
Absolutely, and reviewed
So,
multiple times.
yeah.
And question and question and question. So, thank you very much, sir.
Eric?
Obviously, we approved the banners and parade route closures. So festival's just around the corner, it's not that far away. So it's nice to have some normalcy. It'll be a little different location, obviously, at the high school, but hopefully people can come off of that. In May, we will start to see the information going out for our Connecting Entrepreneurial Conference classes. So that'll be going out. We're narrowing that down with the MSU Extension team right now. So that'll be coming here again, like we mentioned, in September. And then, of course, Back to the Bricks is a week, after festival, June 3rd in downtown. So, hopefully we're back to having some fun things in town again. So that's it.
Very
I
good.
just got the Queen of Scots emails. I think we have 7 girls and 4 weekends.
You're going to tell us you just were awarded?
No. Oh, was I? No, I'm sorry.
The times have changed.
Times have changed. I was emailed the resumes and stuff for the girls. I think there were 7 queen candidates and 4 weekly candidates. So it'll be fun. It's the 28th of this month at the Heritage Center.
Perfect, thank you. And certainly condolences, to the 2 families. It's always sad to have good people pass in the community, but it is a fact of life, and that's not the fun part. Certainly, Eric pointed out some of the fun part, and I know I've heard several questions about the festival is being moved to the high school, and as such, I think everybody's probably aware that, the entertainment tent cannot be located on high school grounds, but it's my understanding that they have located, there's a piece of property in between the high school and middle school where the tent can be. It's private property, it's not school-owned property. So the entertainment tent will be on adjacent property right next to the high school, and it'll be running as normal all year, so that's both days, 3 days, or whatever it is. I think it's 3 days.
Chelsea
Friday
House.
night, Saturday, Sunday. Chelsea House Orchestra's back, is that, okay? Terrific. Sorry, was there more? or-
No.
She
We
said
got
all
excited
year,
when you
we were
said
all
all
year.
year.
We
We were
were-
like,
Oh, year, yeah, okay.
We're gonna go over after the meeting.
Well, the initial one tonight, I guess, will be downtown, at one of our local establishments. Warm up. It's gonna be placed there, so. Congratulations to the committee. I know they scrambled to make the move and to make all the arrangements with the schools, and, you know, thank you to the schools for accommodating this. You know, they did it once 25 years ago or so. I remember being there, but I don't remember what year it was, but takes a lot of work to move something. Put it on in the first place, but to move it takes even more work for that group, so thanks to everybody that's involved.
The housing will still be at Elm.
The housing will still be at Alma College, and, yeah, that's,
It was
I guess,
working on a way of transporting.
a
it. I'm not
question,
sure
yeah, I
how
was
that-
gonna ask,
how that-
is there a way to run dial-a-ride for the weekend?
Did that ever happen, anything with,
We can't run
can't do it?
Yeah, can't do the contracted service.
You can't do it in contracted service. Are we open, though?
Not on the weekend.
Can we be open on that weekend, or a weekend? Are we allowed to be open and run buses on the weekend?
And they're gonna constitute that as a charter service, and we can't do that.
And we've got another division that's medical or whatever that is contracted service, right? And they're not allowed to do it either?
And our vans, they don't operate on weekends either.
Are they allowed to?
We have in the past.
So there's
You have
potential.
to find workers on Memorial Day weekend and probably pay them double, right? I mean, I would wanna be paid double if I had to work on Saturday, Memorial Day.
Yeah,
can you investigate it and get back? to
oh,
us?
I can, I'd be happy to send an email to MDOT and ask permission.
Okay, yeah, it'd be worth asking, and
Sure.
it might be worth contacting some legislators or something too. It seems like a municipal bus service should be able to run for a municipally beneficial event on a weekend. It doesn't make any sense to me that it can't. But I guess laws don't always follow logic.
We'll check.
Okay, appreciate that, thank you. Okay. At this point, we'll open up the floor to members of the public. Anyone who'd like to address the commission, please head to the podium, state your name and address, and share your thoughts. You'll have up to 5 minutes to talk.
My name is Barbara Lang. I live on Loose Road in Alma. I am not a resident of the city, but I do have a number of houses in the city, and so I feel like things that affect the city affect me. And I'm just wondering why we're waiting so long to make Eric Ripley the city manager for good, not just as an interim. You know, he's a trusted member of the staff. I've always felt confident that he's listened to me when I have a concern. He's done a tremendous number of things for our city and has always been there to answer people's questions. I really think that we're doing him a disservice by having him as an interim for all this time. I'd really like to see him move into the permanent position.
Good, thank you. Who else would like to address the commission?
Hey, everybody.
Don?
Long time no see. Just for the record, Don Ayers, 1060 Riverview Drive, Elma. I too kind of have a problem with how this whole city manager search has been going. As a former city commissioner, I was involved in the search and hiring of 2 city managers. I've never seen a group of commissioners appear to be so baffled about how to go about hiring someone for this position. You have a 20-plus year employee who has dedicated his whole career at this point to the city of Elma. Nick mentioned in the last meeting the makeup of the city commission may be completely different after the November elections. If you have less experienced commissioners, wouldn't you want a city commissioner that knows Elma inside out? He also said there may be no robust candidates out there in terms of doing a search outside Elma. Why do you even need to go outside for a candidate? You have a very qualified person in-house who's been doing the job now for 6+ months. He's been assistant city manager for a great number of years also. I'm appalled about how this whole issue is being handled. Some of the discussions in the last meeting are things you do not discuss in public. let alone in front of a potential candidate for the job. These things were always discussed in committee, not in public. I feel some of you have been very unfair to Eric. He deserves better treatment than he's been getting. In your last meeting, some possible qualities brought up for a potential city manager were integrity, dedication, judgment, empathy, and there were others. I feel Eric has all those qualities. In my experiences with him when I was on the city commission, you could trust him to fill in for the city manager whenever needed. When it comes to dedication, who else do you see watering flowers in the downtown after working hours? Judgment and empathy are important. Eric has a good reputation with the DDA, which he has led for years. The business owners think highly of him. When I was on the planning commission, you couldn't ask for someone who was more prepared and knowledgeable. He knows Alma well. It isn't that some of you, what you look for in a city manager, isn't that what some of you, can't even say it, isn't that some of what you look for when you're looking at a city manager? I can think of no one who works harder or who is more in tune with the city. Now, I don't want to get anybody ticked. Rumors are going around, Alma, that the real reason Eric has not been appointed is the mayor does not want him to be city manager. I do not know that from a personal knowledge, if it's true. However, an awful lot of people are saying just that. I do hope the rumors are not true. Eric deserves this job. Quit delaying and give it to him. With that, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Greg, that's not a knock on you. This is what people are talking, okay? So.
For the record, Joe Allen, Sumner Township, and I just wanted to introduce myself and let everyone know that I'll be running for District 3 County Commissioner. And was told that it would be best to come up here and kind of meet everybody and take a look around and
Hey, we
announce it.
appreciate that.
Bet.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And good luck in your campaign.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to address the commission? Okay, with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion support, comments or questions, last chance. All those in favor be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.